Welcome, I'm Mick, an ordinary lad, and this is Sovereign Warriors. Right, welcome to the very first video in this series, which I'm hoping will be able to explain everything to you about all the corruption and all the fraud that this so-called government are doing to the people. They've got no authority whatsoever, and I'm really excited because I've got a good guest here, a good friend of mine called Smudge, who will explain it much better than I can, and we will show you how you can rise up legally with not violence, but non-compliance. And we're going to walk you through everything and show you how you can do all this. But to start with, we need to lay down the foundation so you understand what's been going on and what is still going on today with all this corruption and fraud. Nice to meet you again. Nice to meet you again, Smudge. And I'm really made up to have you. Yeah. Good. So we'll start this interview and let's get these people enlightened.
Okay, let's go.
Job done. So let's talk about the corruption and the treason that you believe took place in the first place.
Yeah, okay. So we have evidence. We have evidence of the government's treason and the government's previous to that and still happening today. And that treason has come about when we joined the EEC, which was the European Economic Communities. And there was a paper written when we were going to go joining this EEC, and that paper was the Foreign Commissioner's Office, I think it was, and it's 30/1048, and it's called the FCO 30/1048. And this was written out for the then Prime Minister at the time, Edward Heath. And it was stating that if we go into the EEC, that we would cause treason. But the treason for, we would lose our sovereignty, but also the monarch will be usurped from a crown and then she'll become head of a crown state. This will give up all the rights, and the sovereign rights, okay, and usurps and remove the monarchy from her throne. And this will be treason. And then as from the 1st January 1973, we join the EEC.
Right. That report you're on about, I'm assuming they hid that report because that's the sort of thing they do. And if they did, how long did they hold it for?
Yeah, believe it or not, yes, they hid it. They hid it for 30 years.
30 years?
30 years, mate. Yeah, 30 years. And they hid it for numerous reasons. One is because they thought 30 years would be enough, that the people would then become forgetful, not be bothered about it. It happened so many years ago, and that they can move on. But also, it hid their treason. And that would have exposed their treason.
So can you explain what that means and how it is treason?
Yeah. What we've got to do is have this treason. We've got to look at our constitution, and our constitution is generally, it's not like the American constitution. They have it all written down. Ours wasn't actually written down, but it was used through through our superior acts, our primary acts and statutes and legislations, and they're for the people and the governments and the monarchy. Keep them in place, and it's for the people to use them to put them at peace. No, not to put them at peace, to put them, there we go then, to people to use the government, the monarchy, who become tyrannical and not fit for purpose, and then we can hold them accountable for this. And the main ones for that were the Magna Carta 1215 and 1297. You've also got the Bill of Rights 1688/9. You've also got the Coronation Oath of 1688, and you've got the Acts of Settlement 1700s, the Acts of Union 1700 to 1800, and then there's the Parliaments Act and also the Human Rights Act, which will come in a little bit later. But we can use them. That's how our constitution is generally made up of such. Yeah.
Can you explain why these acts are so important?
Yeah, of course. Right, I won't go too in deep through each of these acts because we'll be here for a month of the Sundays. But what I'll do is I'll just touch on its significance and how we can use these for our purpose and what we do. And we know these are still in place now. So, and there's a lot of debate with the Magna Carta. Everybody's got their own opinions on it. Some people think that the Magna Carta, that the King John at the time was held at sword point and forced to sign this under duress. Some people say it's a contract just between the barons and the king at the time, and the people aren't involved. But what we do know, that they're in force today, and they're still in force today.
Can you explain what makes these acts so important?
Yeah,
please.
Yeah, of course I do. I say I won't go too deeply in it because we could be here for a month of Sundays. There's a lot of debate with the Magna Carta 1215 at the time. Some say that the King John, who was the king, that he was held at sword point and signed it under duress. We also can say that it was a contract just between the barons and the king himself, and it wasn't involved with the people. But what we do know is that that it's still in force today, and we know that. And the thing is, I think the reason why Parliament don't like it or try to discredit the Magna Carta and say it can't be used as such is because Parliament wasn't formed until after, yeah. And so
they don't like it.
They don't, yeah. And the word Parliament, you've got to look at that. That word Parliament, actually, it's a French word, and it's parler, which means you parley the meeting of minds. But that wasn't really used within Britain as such till around about 1230s, and it never really got into force till about 1236. It got prominent, and our Parliament is what we hear today as such.
Yeah.
Because obviously when King John died, King Henry, his son, wasn't of age as such, so they had an interim kind of like a Parliament there to run things for him until he came of age. So yeah. Well, I mean, I digressed a little bit there. So the 1297, they made they required Parliament to put it as a statue. The 1215 made them put him in it as statue because Parliament, obviously, we know that Parliament was formed when 1215. So all its clauses within the 1215, they can't repeal it. We can't repel it, we can't take it off, or anything as such. We know that the 1297 Magna Carta, they made the government of Parliament to come in to agree and put it in statute law. And with that being in statute law, Parliament can't repeal it, take it away lawfully, because they wasn't involved at the time of its creation.
Yeah.
And so its provisions are kept intact. And so in my opinion, that's why the reasons why they kind of like discredit it or trying to diminish it.
I get that.
It's that because they wasn't involved.
Yeah.
So there's a statement within the Magna Carta that states that no freeman shall be taken or imprisoned or disallowed from his freehold and liberties or even outlawed and exiled by any other passed on to him.
I think that was 13 something.
Yeah. And
I've read that somewhere.
Okay. So it can't condemn him, but only by the law of its own peers, for judgments by its own peers, and by the law of the land. So, which is generally stating that all those, including governments, are held by the law. They are not above the law. No one's above the law. We're all equal in law.
Yeah.
Okay? And we're all equal in law. That's what it's generally stated. Right.
What other superior acts are there then?
Yeah, well, we've also obviously know the Bill of Rights of 1688/9, and it actually states there that all grants and promises, fines and fortitudes of a particular person before a conviction are null and void. Again, that's actually stating that only a jury of 12 by his peers can actually fine you, convict you of anything. Not a single judge.
Right, so like the copper coming along with his £60 fine, that's
Yeah.
illegal, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, generally, that's by consent.
Yeah.
But we'll look into that as we get into that and why we know that it has to be by consent. But yeah, that's generally it.
Yeah. So all courts that are judge-led basically have no authority.
No.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. They are judge-led because that's going into maritime law. Again, we'll touch on that before because we act as courts of the land, law of the land, the common law, if people like to say. But there's only a jury of 12 can actually convict anybody, a man or woman. So these jury-leds there are due through legalese, through the light side of maritime law. And also with the combined due process of 1368, the Due Process Act, that every man has the right to due process. A finding it's on which generally is stating that there's a maxim in law which is actually saying that he who makes a claim of a debt has the burden of proof. So to require that to be proven, we have to have due process.
Yeah.
So if you're being accused of something, you need to then ask these questions to the one who's making it accused. So if there's a crime being committed, there has to be a victim. So that victim there can then be cross-examined for that accused to be done. And if there's no victim, there's no crime.
Yeah.
So then if it's contractual and there's a debt, where's the contract? But then you've got to ask these questions. And that's through due process. That allows you to do that in due process. And the due process isn't done. And we're finding that out now, the due process not being done through all courts. And we've experienced that.
Yeah.
In these, we can call them kangaroo courts or whatever.
Yeah.
And these are these judge-led courts. Because
Yeah.
it's through maritime, which they take over as jurisdiction. But we can explain how they get over that
Later on,
jurisdictions. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
fine.
I heard you mention the coronation oath. Could you
Yeah.
explain that a little bit more? Because that's obviously the monarchy we're talking about here.
Yes, it holds the monarchy to account. And one of the reasons, again, you've got to look at who's sovereign on this land. And the people who are sovereign on this land, it's actually the men and women. We are actually sovereign. So you've got to look at what comes first. So the community, men and women come first. And we create communities. And then we create these communities and we create councils. And then we create councils and then we create governments and obviously monarchy. But it's the men and women, it's we the people who create. And that's another maxim in law. He who creates owns. So anything that's been created has no authority over the man and woman. They can't force anything onto you.
Because we created it.
Because we created it.
So we own it.
Yeah, we own it.
Yeah.
So what we do, we create these governments to govern by consent, and that's the same with the monarchy. The monarchy's in there; that they're our voice. But under the coronation oath, it actually holds them to accountable for with this coronation oath. And there's a saying in this coronation oath. I'll try and word it for how it says. Forgive me if I can't say it word for word, but it actually states like. I think it says, it goes like, I solemnly do swear to govern the people of this kingdom and its dominions, and to behold and according to the statutes in Parliament agreed upon and the laws and customs of this land. And that's generally saying that we have our monarchy hold Parliament accountable for all these statutes, and there's a separation there. So we've got a separation of statutes that obviously we create, and over time these statutes become part of our law.
Yeah.
Customs, we know our customs become part of our law over time and period, like weddings and Christian, not Christians, what we call them.
Have to call it that,
Yeah.
Yeah. You're on about the gospel, how it's all built on the gospel.
Yeah,
Because all our laws are built on the gospel.
Yeah,
that's why you put your hand on a Bible when you go into court, for that reason.
Yeah,
yeah.
And that's it. And again, they're trying to discredit that, but that's another story to go down on there. So we know that we have these statues, which are superior statues, and which we obviously using today. So the Magna Carta, the Bill of Rights, the Coronation Oath. These are accountable for, which have been enshrined in our law over time and period, because we know that they were. So, yeah.